All right, it is 7:01 PM on Tuesday, November 3rd, and we are going to open the Committee of Committees meeting. Take roll call, please.
Committee members Chris Sample,
Here.
John Talbot,
Here.
William Luxinger is absent, Dina Simpson,
Here.
Jen Christensen,
Here.
and Jared Doan is absent. President Rick Worm,
Here.
Treasurer Brenda Onabany. Here. Clerk Sandy Monson here. We have Attorney Dirk Price with us. Engineer Matt Hansen. Here. Public Works Supervisor Brett Fergie. Here. Can I get a motion for William to participate due to medical reasons?
I'll make a motion to allow William Luxinger to participate remotely. I'll second.
Dina makes a motion to allow William Luxinger to attend remotely. Jen seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion passes 7:02.
William?
No, he hasn't gotten back with the computer yet.
Well, maybe William.
You there, William?
He's muted up.
Oh, I lost him.
William, are you there?
He was. Sandy,
Oh, well.
Once we see him, we'll sign him in at that
Let's
time.
go back on.
is the Zoom meeting being recorded?
No.
Is it going to be?
I can't.
I mean,
You have to allow the participants to know ahead.
now it is.
Just so that everybody knows, it is being recorded. It does not have to be, I'll discuss that with you later. So, this meeting is being recorded. I've asked everybody to stay muted. If you are going to speak, press and hold your space bar. This is to hopefully help with the reverberation of those who are in attendance.
We some tape.
Yep.
I can't shut it off.
I gotcha.
When William gets back in, we'll do his roll call then and sign him at that point. In the meantime, we'll move on to the consideration of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 6th, 2020 Committee of Committee minutes.
I'll second that.
Jen makes a motion to approve the October 6, 2020 committee meeting minutes. Dina seconds. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes 7:05. Under the reports of the officers, under me, we have the discussion of the IGA with Stillman Valley, which is due to expire soon. We're gonna try and get it renewed before the end of this presidential term. That way we have it in place for the next 4 years.
I think it's, they're being done in 2-year increments.
2 years.
So is this just the same one we've always done in terms of, like, when we help them with equipment, they help us and so forth?
Would anybody like, would anybody like that sent to them? Well, we'll get it sent to you anyway as part of the packet, but
Wasn't it?
It was already in
Yeah.
today's
read it.
packet, yeah. And it's the same one that we, like, sometimes we lend them equipment, they lend us equipment, we help them out, vice versa. It's been the same thing we've done for years.
What I read, and it had hours and if you shared employees or whatever, is
Yes.
that same thing, right?
Yes.
All right.
So what it's doing is allowing us, in case of an emergency, to share equipment and time and people with Stillman Valley. Stillman Valley is also gonna have the same discussion with their board to confirm that they also wanna continue it, but if both parties are on board, the clerk from Stillman Valley and I will work together to get the IGA extended for another 2 years, if everybody...
I'm fine with it, yeah.
everybody good with that?
Yes, sir?
Yes.
You gotta push your bars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
All right. Move on to the clerk.
The only thing I have is, typically in the past, we have chosen to keep off our Facebook pretty neutral and being cautious in what we share with others and other events. Sarah, our administrative assistant, had a good idea, though, about sharing some community events for people that are still happening, and maybe just taking one day a week and dedicating it for, events for people, and it just kind of be on a first come, first served, or what we see basis. I just wanted to make sure that there was no issues with going down that route, 'cause we kind of skirted it before, but,
Events like what?
so last week, I don't know if you saw, she shared, there was like the roller rink, the White Pines roller rink was having open seating or something, and so she shared that event. And it's just, really at these times, it's just sharing to, one, support those events, and two, to let our community know if there is stuff going on.
So what happens when somebody calls and wants to share their event that we may find controversial or not want to share?
So that's really why we've stayed away from it in the past, and I think that, as I said, it's a first come, first served, so there wouldn't be a lot of, if the date's already full, the date's already full. And I think that if we follow something similar to our, like, sign guidelines, or for the park, that if we keep in line with something like that, that we're pretty family friendly based on those guidelines.
I think it's a good idea because there are a lot of people that are new to our community and don't know that they have access to something like that, or if they do, they don't know that they're open and providing the service.
And just to clarify, I guess I wanna make sure too, like, we're talking about like, events happening, so does that include as well? 'Cause I know this is what kinda took us down the rabbit hole before, when people are like, oh, I'm having a Mary Kay open house, oh, I'm having a, so like, do we have a clarification on how not to go down that rabbit hole again?
I think Sarah and I could probably come up with some language to put together to do that. Similar to what we did with the sign, we were able to find some language for that. So maybe Sarah and I can put together some language for you guys to kind of give us a rough guideline. Because I agree with you, I don't want it for that, but I think it needs to be for all age groups, all inclusive, as many, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, 5 people only. That's kind of defeating the purpose.
'Cause, yeah, I mean, I don't mind, like, even the small businesses and stuff like that. I think that's exciting for people if they're having, you know, open houses and all that stuff. I just wanna make sure that then all of a sudden it doesn't turn into this, we're favoring one and not the other. That concerns me. Yeah.
So how about if you guys are okay with it, I'll work with Sarah on putting together maybe a rough guideline, just a couple of sentences to guide us, similar to what we did with the village sign, so that we know what kind of things to allow and not allow. But I think it's a great idea, but I don't disagree that we probably need some guideline to it.
I think it's a good idea otherwise. I wanna make sure that then there's no preferential treatment and I just wanna be safe in that regard.
Okay, we'll come up with something and I'll bring it back to the committee in 2 weeks. That's all I had.
Brenda?
Nope, hold on, this is where a hiccup comes in.
I figured it out.
Perfect. Brenda, can you speak for me again so I can work on the video or the audio on our end?
I don't have anything right now. I'm just working on my normal stuff that I do every week, and the care receipts.
We do have William back as well.
All right,
I'm here.
you wanna call him in?
Nope.
What's the phone?
William?
Is that William?
That's William.
Jared?
Oh.
Sure.
Yep.
We need a motion.
Jared, I'm gonna need a separate motion for you. I'm looking for William right now.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Let's just call them both in at the same time, let's do the motion.
I need a motion to allow Jared to participate remotely.
I'll make a motion to allow Jared Stone to participate remotely.
I'll second that.
Jen makes a motion to allow Jared Doan to attend remotely. Dina seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Passes 7-11.
Jared?
Yes.
You already get William?
I don't know.
Yep.
Yep.
How do you tell?
All right, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is report of the village attorney. David?
Well, hold on, David, I'm gonna interrupt you first, real quick. Jared, can you please mute your phone? You're good, David.
Okay, so we've been asked to look at that escrow agreement that Vulcan provided us. And as I said the last time we met, we've been talking about escrow agreements for unfinished construction and issuance of temporary certificates of occupancy for a long time. Generally, the escrow agreement that Vulcan provided could meet the village's needs, but there needs to be some things that are relevant to the blanks in it. For instance, the parties to the agreement. If, for instance, work involves public improvements, the village should definitely be a party to the agreement so that it can draw on the escrow as necessary to complete any public improvements associated with new construction. In a lot of communities, the escrowee, in a lot of communities, the municipality will hold on to the escrow amount, but in this instance, it appears the village would be having the buyer and seller make arrangements with their title company to hold on to the money. I mean, that's fine, but there needs to be some good instruction about how that money should be released and for what improvements. And that takes me to the next point. What work needs to be completed? The village's building official should be satisfied with the incomplete work being adequately described in the agreement so that everyone understands what has to happen come spring. Also, make sure that the costs for those improvements, either private or public, are accurate. There should be a construction deadline, construction schedule in the agreement. And again, the building official can review that and should be satisfied with that. And then also the building official should have the final say, of course, when the work is complete, to issue a permanent certificate of occupancy. We've looked around in a lot of communities in the area, including Belvedere, Rochelle, and Hillcrest, do require escrow deposits for temporary certificates of occupancy. That's not something the village has operated with, but it's something that, is not uncommon. Keep in mind we have a code freezing provision with Harvest Glen. So any amendments that we would make toward having escrow deposits for temporary occupancy permits wouldn't apply there. So those are just some things. The village really just needs to get comfortable and get consistent with how it wants to deal with these things.
So really, in talking to Dan about this and at Ansel Point, the biggest thing for me was that the village is not a party to this agreement, and my understanding, David, is that then we have no say as to when it gets released and if the work is completed to the satisfaction of us or not.
I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand our concern with Ogle Crossings because we don't have any ditch concerns itself. So I guess my question would be, if Harvest Glen, if it's frozen and it doesn't affect them, can we have separate agreements with different builders, or does this have to be across the board for the village?
The issue is we don't want to treat Vulcan better than Harvest Glen. That becomes the problem for us. Everyone should be treated at least at the Harvest Glen level, and this is something the village has struggled with because no one's particularly pleased with how the whole Harvest Glen thing has rolled out over a long period of time. So we're just suggesting that ultimately to get on a more consistent plane, and it won't apply to Harvest Glen because of the code freezing provisions in their agreement, but that you put this in ordinances because we're just kind of taking a scattershot approach right now, and we really need to get consistent with it.
So David, if we were putting this in ordinances and if we were talking about a consistent approach to down the road, like as overall in the village, this is like the way we do business kind of thing, would that be something then if we were to approach it the way that they were with the escrow and so forth, would that be, I mean, is that the recommendation to do something like that, or then everybody would be treated that way?
We think that everything should be set at a minimum, or, let me think how I want to say this. Well, Harvest Glen can provide the model for an ordinance solution to this. Let me put it that way.
And I have a little problem with that, just because you're trying to treat everybody the same, even though the conditions are different. If Ogle Crossings, if we have no concerns on ditch work, clearly we're not gonna have any for Ogle Crossings, then either we need to have language in the ordinance that, accounts for the difference.
Identifies one from the
Yeah,
other?
yeah, I don't see how, we can treat them exactly the same when the conditions are totally different. I understand you setting a minimum standard for something, but I don't think we can treat everybody across the board the same.
Well, okay, so it's not necessarily that you're treating everyone the same when it comes to the actual financial mechanics of the escrow agreements, because what it is setting the standards for like the things that the escrow should cover if we're gonna be issuing temporary certificates of occupancy when we know work still needs to be completed on the residential lot, be it the sod, be it the driveway approach, be it the ditch, whatever it is. Just that there is a uniform system for the building code official to work with the developer to establish an escrow agreement based on uniform standards that apply to everyone. But, those things could vary from lot to lot depending on what work still needs to be done.
And whether it's water runoff or drainage, it's still the same, because even if they have storm sewer, they still have to drain the water off the property. So that's still a concern when you go over the winter if the grade's not complete and getting that sod in. So,
Oh, you're talking about the sod for the...
whether,
Can I say something?
whether it goes to the adjoining properties or whether it goes into the ditch, you still have to worry about drainage.
Where you wanted to see. Go ahead, Brian.
What was that?
David kinda started to touch on what I was gonna bring up, but we can't just hang the hat on that Harvest Glen's escrow agreement was specific to ditch work. That's not the case. There were instances where sod and yards were not put in, asphalt driveways were not put in. There's a conglomerate of issues that brought this to light. So we can't claim that Vulcan or Ogle Crossings issue is drainage alone. They still have the same requirements of driveways, sod, and yards, and we're going into wintertime where those are the things that are gonna shut down, that will hold up the permanent certificate of occupancy, which is why they're looking for the CO. We can't just hang our hat on the drainage issue of this topic. There's a whole bigger picture of it. And I do agree that we have to be uniformed in the approach on how we handle this in the whole village.
And I think sorry.
No?
I think when we're talking about this, if we're talking about a uniform code for how we handle business in the village, then it's gonna have to be something along the lines of, if we are to issue a certificate of occupancy, for any unfinished items such as blah, 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 whatever they are, there will be an escrow account established in this way somehow. So then, no matter where you are, I don't care if you're south of town, north of town, east, west, whatever, then anybody that knows that they want a temporary certificate of occupancy, that they know there's gonna have to be an escrow account, they know it's gonna have to be listed what the items are to be finished, and they know it has to be approved by our village.
Building official?
Yeah, building official, and if the wording is like that, then that stands to hold true for any situation that's unfinished, and we can note that in that paperwork, I think.
Dina, I think that's exactly how we have been handling this in the past 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
That's kinda,
Yeah.
we said that, we could probably go back in the minutes
Yeah,
and research, and we did say this is how we are handling this moving forward. And again, we're talking about deviating from that. My understanding was that any house that tends to close over the course of wintertime that does not have graded ditch work, asphalt driveway, a yard by specifications of the development agreement will not get a permit. and they have to have an escrow established that the village has access to those funds in order to get a temporary CO. So I think we've already established all that, and
But
I
is
think
that in the
we just
ordinance?
need to continue that trend.
Okay.
I agree, we have established that. We talked
then if
about
that's
that
what we're doing,
multiple
then
times, and we've offered
the
that
big deal?
to other builders, and they've rejected it.
Yeah.
So this builder is willing to do it, so.
But our name wasn't in it, was the issue to begin with.
We don't know if this builder is willing to do it. The builder is on the Zoom call as well, but, this builder had offered up the escrow agreement that you guys had seen, and then David just shared his thoughts. So the builder was hopeful from their last appearance here that we would be okay with using their existing agreement, but as you saw, David shared the concerns with using that.
I think we continue as.
Why does the village need to be, part of the escrow agreement if there isn't ditch work?
Because there's,
No,
I would
no,
disagree.
I don't care if they have a driveway, they can do that themselves.
No, there's
Well,
no way.
we would treat that as a private contract matter between the resident and the builder. If there's really no basis for the village to have any security to draw on if there are no public improvements. But you could still make it a requirement for the issuance of a temporary CO that they do have an arrangement between the two private entities to make sure that the work is finished, so that a permanent certificate of occupancy can be issued for the property.
I would argue that a driveway, specifically the approach and the sidewalk going across, is public improvement, that the village needs to be able to access those funds.
If it's in the defined public way, the 66-foot right-of-way, absolutely.
It is, and I want to share that in the past, before the moratorium on no temporary COs, there was a scenario in which we did use an escrow agreement in which we were just a party. The title company held it, and then we just had to sign off on it once the improvements were completed, and that seemed to have worked fairly well, whereas we weren't holding it then, the title company was still holding it, but we were still a party that required to sign off on it to make sure the improvements got done.
I guess that's probably the biggest point of why we have to be access to the funds, is to make sure the stuff gets done.
Do we have recourse against, let's say it's a driveway, and do we not have recourse against the owner of the house for them to put in the yard and the driveway without?
We do, but
The whole point of this has been to keep it off the owner of the house, and it's the builder's responsibility.
Yeah, but if the owner has escrow account with the builder, then they should insist upon it, and that money's still sitting there to do that very thing. I'm wondering why the village has to be a part of that.
The village would need to be a party, and David can confirm or deny, or correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the village needs to be a party, so that we don't have to sue the new homeowner for enforcement of a CO certificate, because their temporary CO will eventually expire, the improvements will not have been done, and then our recourse is to sue our new homeowner. Whereas if we're involved in the escrow agreement, it relieves that responsibility from the new homeowner, and it gives the village a little bit more leverage to push it back onto the builder.
All right,
Well, okay, again,
whatever.
I'm only advocating that the village be a party to these escrow agreements. We as of Link are only advocating that the village be a party to, the escrow agreements where there still are public improvements involved. Which, if I remember correctly from our conversation about a month ago, was it? That's not the case at Old Gold Crossing? Is that right?
Well,
I agree with
Williams
William.
arguing that the driveway within our space, which would be a public improvement.
Williams arguing that only the driveway apron between the street
So am I.
and the edge of the public way is public property, and we would agree with, is part of the public way, so we would agree at least for that portion of the driveway, yes. But anything from the property line forward to the house, that's strictly between the developer and the property owner. The property owner would have a natural interest in wanting to get a permanent certificate of occupancy because, as noted, a temporary CO does have a finite life to it, be it 6 months, be it a year, whatever it is. And so if they lose their temporary CO, then they're illegally occupying the property.
Which then, doesn't that put us back to our only recourse is to then go after the current homeowner to make sure that they've complied?
Well, it's really a private issue. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's between the homeowner, the home purchaser, and the developer.
My understanding is the intent, I understand what you're saying, that it does become a private issue, that the homeowner needs to go after the developer to get these projects finished.
They already have.
Contract issue.
Correct. However, the developer's agreement between the developer and the village requires these things to be done before occupancy, permanent or temporary. And the village has been put in a position too many times to the point where these checklist items or things that are required to be done by the developer's agreement are not done for reasons of weather or asphalt plants closing or sod farms closing, and I understand that. But our developer's agreement is between the village and the developer, and we expect those things to be done. And I do not want to be the person sitting on the board going after a homeowner, forcing them to go after the developer. And then that takes a long process to get completed, and by us getting involved with the escrow, it speeds that process up, and I think it cuts months, if not years, out of the process.
The only action would be between the village and the developer. And so the village would be coming in indirectly pursuant to the annexation agreement. To enforce the provisions of the annexation agreement. How involved do you guys really want to get into these matters? That's really the question.
Okay, David, but we've had this before where we provided a permanent CO to a resident. We went back to the developer, and the developer says, it's not my problem because I'm no longer the property owner of this house. You granted this homeowner a permanent CO. It's his problem now, and that's what we don't want to happen.
Background noise.
That's Williams TV.
This is Jennifer with Vulcan, and we do escrows all the time we have probably 15 closings over the winter time that we have to escrow the funds. We are pushed, one, by the buyer in order to get the items done, but also the lender, because oftentimes the lenders have to hold on to their loan. They can't sell it to FHA or VA or whatever until those items are done, and they don't actually even have an escrow. So it's part of our contract, and I know that we talked about this briefly when we were there last, that Harvest Glen, they didn't include those items in their contract. We do. We sell it to the homeowners. The blacktop driveway and the sod are already included in the purchase price of their home. So it's a requirement for the lender, for the buyer, and then for you guys. So we're not just being held, by one person. So we always get the work done, and that's never a question. But it is by more than just the village. It's by the lender and the buyer too.
So here's where,
Go ahead, Sandy.
here's where this is where I think the issue comes in, David, is that, if we are not a party to this, or are a party, or choose to do whatever, and we are only interested in the portion that affects the right-of-way, we eventually are coming back to them, or going back to the original homeowner, because they have a lot that is not in compliance with the village's building codes, it's not in compliance with the ordinances, and so when I say that we eventually have to go back to the homeowner, that's what I'm talking about, which is why last time we chose to do an escrow agreement, we were involved as a party for the rights of just signing off on it, and really for no other purpose, to just confirm that it wasn't fully in compliance with the building code before it was signed off on.
That was Harvest Glen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but you're still gonna end up, they still have the same requirement for sod and driveway in Ogle Crossing that they do in Harvest Glen. And as you mentioned, we should be treating them all equally.
Yes. Harvest Glen is special because Harvest Glen has made themselves special because they've been an absolute thorn in the side for as long as we've had to deal with them. You have, getting back to the specific thing we're talking about today, we were asked to look at a very specific escrow agreement. We have suggested and put in writing what we think the village needs to consider if it's going to accept these escrow agreements to enable Vulcan to get temporary COs for the houses they build where they can complete work that would typically be done in warmer months. We've given our suggestions to that, but it's a broader policy issue anyway that the village just really has to come to terms with. So in our estimation, just to recap real quick, insofar as there's a public improvement which could include the driveway apron, because that would be part of the 66-foot public way, the village could be, at least for that segment of a driveway, and if there's ditches in the front or anything else that need to be graded, whatever it is, the village should be a party in that instance because the village's concern is making sure that the public improvements are done. Once you cross over the property line and it's strictly in the four corners of the private property and the homeowner is sitting only with the temporary CO that's going to expire in some period of time, that homeowner has an incentive to make sure that the developer, in this case Vulcan, gets the private improvements on the private property done, the sod, the balance of the driveway, whatever it is. And then we also suggest that the building code official, pursuant to the requirements not only of the agreement, but also the building code itself, be satisfied that the work is properly accounted for, that the pricing seems appropriate, that the escrow amount seems appropriate, and that there's a construction schedule associated with it. Those are our recommendations based upon looking at the escrow agreement that we were shown. The broader policy issue is whether you want to finally formalize this process that you've been doing kind of on an ad hoc basis through your ordinances.
And so then
You gotta push a button.
then what we were talking about earlier, by putting them in the ordinances, clarifying that that's how we do business, with the escrow piece in mind, that's what I would want to do.
Hold on.
Of course, I'm only one person.
David, did you hear Dina?
Am I unmuted?
Now you are.
Yeah. Am I muted or unmuted? Okay. So why do we do this? You have our recommendations on that. We can still work with Vulcan to make sure that that stuff's properly incorporated, make sure the building code official is satisfied with what's in that escrow agreement. We can also draft something for the next committee meeting so you can take a look at it to see how it would operate. And we can discuss it more completely at that time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I have a question. Where does that lead us right now? Because obviously it's getting close to the time that we can't sod or blacktop or anything at this point, and we're still framing houses that we're closing in April, I believe, which would be too early to complete the improvements, and now we're really we're getting too late to be able to do anything, which would lead us to have to sod, do the public improvements and everything with a house that's not framed. And I don't know if that's really something that the village wants either, but our hand would be kind of forced.
Well, insofar as you need temporary COs pending completion of certain site improvements, that may or may not include any public improvements, we've shared with the village what we would want to see in there. And we can talk about this tomorrow to get those concerns addressed in the escrow agreement model that you provided.
Okay, that sounds good, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Do you need us anymore?
No.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, you too.
Hi, man.
Anybody have anything further? David, you're gonna draft something for us in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody good to move on?
Next.
Matt Hanson.
All right, can you hear me? All right, project status report, Harvest Glen Plat 10 Phase 2, the driveway approach did get completed. Corey did send the final pay request to Martin with the $1,500 deduct, for the driveway approach getting, replaced by the village's contractor. He signed it, and Corey sent that on to Sandy and, Brenda to go ahead and process final payment. So, once that's paid, we can close out, the Harvest Glen Phase 2 project. No activity on the 72 sidewalk project. Pacific Avenue, culvert modifications, project's completed. Corey's just waiting on the final pay request and the final waiver of liens from, Kelsey Excavating. Once we get those, we'll process those and get that project closed. Nothing with the North Junction Road project, Oval Crossing Pond, channel repairs. Corey sent the final pay request. The project's complete, sent the final pay request to the village for processing, so that will be closed out. Nothing on the microsurfacing project. Same thing with the park pond modifications. The water tower painting, all that work's complete. Tower's been disinfected and put back online. I know I mentioned last meeting, but, Brett really did a really good job operating the system with the tower down. It's not easy to do with a temporary system, so he did put a lot of time and effort into it, so I want to thank him for that. Village Hall assessment, we're moving into the Phase 2 portion of that. Village approved our proposal to work up basically the preliminary cost estimate, along with kind of a preliminary layout and site layouts for a new Village Hall on the old treatment plant site, so we'll get started on that. Hopefully we'll have something to you right after the first of the year. Probably once he has it done, we'll probably do a presentation for the board like we did with the Phase 1 portion of the project. And then the last thing I had was the Maple Court vacation. We got that vacation plan, the final one, sent on to Mark and Sandy on October 8th. So I don't know, Sandy, is that moving along okay, or?
So you can actually remove that from your project list. The board decided a couple weeks ago to discontinue moving forward on that project.
Okay, I will take that off then. Any questions, or? All right, that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. We're gonna move on to the committee.
Can you hit your space bar?
I did.
I wasn't showing you unmuted.
Thank you, Matt.
Still not showing you unmuted.
Thanks, Matt.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't mute the old way. Thanks, Matt. We're gonna move on to the committee reports and community development and events.
Okay, I have, coming up, we have the holiday, or community holiday, which will be a drive-through again on December 5th.
have not set hours yet, 'cause I have to contact some people. And then the blood drive is going to be Thursday, December 10th, from 3 to 7 at the fire station.
Will you be working directly with Sarah on what you wanna see for the fifth, or would you like me to correspond with her?
No, I will get in touch with her. I have to make some phone calls and get some stuff set first to see what we're gonna do.
Perfect.
And that's all I have.
Moving on to finance and William.
Only thing I had on the agenda, I had asked, sorry, hold on.
The fire pager.
Yeah.
I had asked Sandy to put this topic on the agenda. Once the region went into our first shutdown, we provided, some relief to our residents by water bill relief for about approximately 2 months. However, probably the small businesses that we have in town, have been hit even harder at this point. So I just wanted the topic of a discussion here about what we can do for our small businesses, especially coming up to the end of the year. And they gotta start applying for new licenses and new permits and occupancy and stuff like that. So, I wanna have a discussion with the board on how we can help them survive, however means we can.
That's a great idea. And when you said like their licenses and permits, are you talking or referring to like them with the permits that they have to do through the village then?
So, when I originally thought of this, I thought potentially maybe these businesses were gonna have to come up with some outdoor seating, everything else, which would require some, modifications to their, agreements. And if they were putting any structures in, that would require review or permits, that we could potentially waive those. Sounds like that's not happening, that I haven't seen any structures or permits come in for that stuff. But some of their annual licensing, liquor license or, annual fees such as that, so.
I'd definitely be in favor of doing something like that in terms of their fees and waiving stuff like that, because they've had a horrible last 7 months.
Can I ask a question? They haven't asked, about expanding into, although I thought I saw something with Junction Liquors where they had expanded in the parking lot. Do they plan to have that structure up through the winter?
They just have barricades out over the sidewalk. I don't think are they into the parking lot?
No, I think they did picnic tables on the sidewalk, and then they had like a makeshift kind of tent thing. And actually, the other day, I saw them taking the tent and everything down, so,
The tent's all down now.
yeah.
Just barricades up.
I mean, so, at least with Junction Liquors as an example, I mean, they would have to work something out with the landlord to be able to use that space more permanently through the winter. It is an expansion of their business floor plan, if you think about it. So one of the things that we've talked about in other communities who are wanting to allow businesses to expand, into public ways with some type of tent structure, is using temporary use provisions that would allow them to occupy that space for a certain period of time. And it could, then that tent structure would have to come down at the end of the temporary use period, which could be like April, May, or something like that. And if they still wanted to use it, because we're still dealing with, pandemic orders or whatever, and they still wanted to have tables outside of like their normal, floor plan.
David, we can probably stop you. I don't think they're gonna be putting up, I don't think any of the businesses in town are gonna put up any outdoor structures.
Okay, well, that's fine, it's just something to think about.
They're continuing to operate inside, and, I don't believe the village is gonna step in and engage and stop them. But,
Okay.
We did
if we're,
We did also pass an ordinance earlier this year, I think during the few months in which you probably were MIA, David, in which Ian helped us. And so we do have an ordinance in place that says that we will waive a lot of our outdoor special use requirements, and then it set forth some additional requirements they have to meet with. So as long as they're doing those things, they're allowed to have it until occupancy returns to 100% capacity.
Right.
So I guess the only thing left, I'm seeing is that when I originally thought of this, potentially that they'd be maybe moving, into some outdoor seating or dining or structures or whatever. I guess that doesn't seem to be happening. The only thing left, I guess, would be their, annual liquor license fees. And if that's something the board does wish to waive, I'd do it more along the lines of, waiving it under a structure that, they've, no violations with the Ogle County Health Department, or any outstanding bills with the village, or any outstanding issues with the sheriff, or anything. As long as they're in compliance with everybody, I'd be good. Or reducing it.
I would be good with that too,
Can you
especially if
unmute yourself?
I'm hitting the button.
It's not working.
You
You'll-
got-
No,
gotta click on-
How do you, I don't know.
Lower left corner,
Yeah, I guess, maybe. Speaker mute?
lower left corner,
Hold on,
lower
we
right.
have technical difficulties in unmuting.
Where?
No, you don't have it maximized. There you go.
Hey, all right. I was just gonna say that I would be in favor of waiving, if not all their fees, at least some of their fees, because if they, currently, we're supposed to be down to, 10 people? I don't know if people are really following it or not. I mean, I watched voting today and it seemed pretty crowded, but whatever. But still, even if they're violating it, they still can't go at maximum rate, so they're losing money probably every month. And if there's, a way for us to defer the cost of some of their fixed costs, I would be in favor of that.
I would too, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, waiver of what percentage and what requirements,
I-
putting
We'll
in replacement.
put it on
for
discussion
everything
for,
now?
Yeah, I'd be in favor, if
fees
we
for
can
the end
waive
of the
their
year.
fees, I would love to be able to waive their fees in general. Like, if they have a license that they have to get for their liquor license, if there's, I don't know exactly what the dollar amounts are for each one, but if we could pull off doing it in its entirety, that'd be great.
So liquor license fees are, I believe, $1,000, per establishment, and then there's a gaming fee of $25 per gaming machine, which is about $150 per
And we've got, what,
establishment.
3, 4?
What about business licenses?
We don't have business licenses.
We got rid of them all.
We just have liquor and
Yep.
gaming.
We just have 3 establishments?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm full amount as far as
I'd be
I'm
fine with that,
concerned.
yeah.
Okay, I think the village.
But again, with the point of no violations,
Yes,
Yep.
well.
no outstanding
Yeah,
debt.
except for the health department part about if they're violating the COVID stuff.
Yeah, 'cause they're all of them are
Yeah,
violating that,
I don't care so
so,
much about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, at all.
I guess I meant, we don't have any, like roaches or something. I didn't mean that.
I think we got it.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So if everybody is in favor of that, I will work with, Mark, Dan, or David on having them draft something similar to we did to utility billing,
okay.
allowing for the waiver of the fees for this coming year.
Sounds good.
John?
Yes.
I did not mute you. For some reason, the mic was,
You're playing with
Yes.
buttons over there.
That's fine.
I'm trying.
Stop playing with buttons.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, then we'll move on since we're having that taken care of.
You're still not unmuted.
You muted me.
No.
Should, see, you're, all right, we're gonna move on. Ordinance enforcement, Jared.
Nothing at this time.
Nice second.
Chris, you gotta mute.
Parks and John?
I didn't have anything this evening. Did Nate leave anything with anyone? Nothing.
Streets, Chris?
Can I unmute now?
Yes.
All right. I have so much, don't know where to begin. The first thing I'd like to ask is, I had a resident call me, he thinks that one of the, one of the contractors hit his shed. I looked at it, it's not too bad, so, and I don't know, do we have a policy about that if, for us, it wouldn't be worth going after the contractor who apparently didn't bother, admitting to it, or maybe they didn't do it, I don't know. Is there any issue with us, if he wants to change or fix his piece of trim, where we would reimburse them for the piece of trim? Do we have a policy on that?
I don't believe that we.
What is the dollar figure?
I don't know, it couldn't be much.
Up to 2,500, you can authorize it.
Oh, all right, it wouldn't be much, and I'm sure that they broke his, you know, the corner of his shed. There's no doubt in my mind. And then, what day was it, Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Friday I got a call that, there was a lady who was putting in a driveway in Ogle Crossings, on Northwestern. And, this was a driveway where they were actually extending it. Is that where they got the permit from, to extend the driveway?
Yes.
Sorry, did you add something to that, William?
No, that was me.
It was her echoing.
So they widened the driveway and they were gonna have it come out and get paved, and actually she had the permit from like September 8th or something like that. It was a long time ago. Apparently it takes a really long time to get your driveway paved. But that's where we had the sidewalks going through, but except for this was a driveway that didn't have the sidewalks, and I know as the village, we've discussed this, where we would like to have, the sidewalk go through. Well, you know, nobody told them, so they cut off the sidewalks on both sides, and we're just gonna go pave the entire driveway. But when it was brought to our attention, well, we thought maybe we should have the sidewalk go through, because that's kind of the intention of the village. Going forward, we'll have to have some kind of policy in place, because they didn't know it, and we didn't take any steps to do it. I assume we're paying for it if we want, the sidewalks to go through, because wouldn't the sidewalks be our responsibility? Anybody? Everybody?
I wanna say in the past, we had paid for it whenever there was a project out there doing with the, okay, so we've done it once before when we were doing why am I drawing a blank? With all the homes out there in which we connected them to the,
Sump pump project?
thank you, the sump pump project.
Not quite the same,
Sump pump project?
not quite the same, but the sidewalks basically are our responsibility now, once they're in place, right? So I would think that if we didn't force the contractor to put in the sidewalk through the driveway like they were supposed to, that we would end up paying for the sidewalk itself, which is gonna be moot in this point, because they can't wait 6 or 8 weeks to get a sidewalk in before they can put their driveway in. So I actually told the lady to go ahead and have her driveway paved, just like they were going to, and like their permit said to. But going forward, the village needs to have some kind of procedure. If we want the people to, who are replacing their driveway or expanding their driveway that don't have a concrete sidewalk through it, to notify us so that we can come in and put in the concrete first, and then they can have it paved, you know, on both sides of the concrete. Because in this lady's driveway, it was pretty steep. It was a pretty good slope.
I
So-
thought we did a thing where we agreed that we were gonna continue doing that, 'cause didn't some of them not have it, and then we said, yes, we're gonna do it this way?
I agree, I think we did as well, I just,
We just don't have a procedure.
and in this instance, the permit didn't specify that they would be ripping out any portion of the sidewalk as they did, and so, I will have a discussion with, our building inspector and with the homeowners, and the homeowners are gonna get angry again, but we've gotta have more detailed information. The permit application said nothing about the removal of an existing sidewalk to put in that third car stall, and so I think that's, it's kind of a life lesson.
Well,
learned
that's
all the way
kind of,
through.
should be intuitive, that if you're expanding your driveway, that you're probably gonna run into the sidewalk if the sidewalk goes up to the sides of the driveway.
Well, you think if you rip the sidewalk off, you would put it back in?
Actually, they cut it.
The-
They cut it straight off.
Yeah.
It's a nice cut. There's no issues with that as far as I'm
So the
concerned.
dilemma is that the building inspector doesn't know that there's an existing sidewalk there, because their plans didn't say there was an existing sidewalk there.
There wasn't. Well,
There was.
no, I understand. You're also
Yeah.
asking a homeowner to give, in fact, when I had my driveway replaced, all they did is ask me for a diagram of it.
Yeah,
I don't know if I had a sidewalk coming through a portion of it that I would have put it in there either.
yeah, and so I think that's something that I'm going to update our driveway building permit requirements to say, that to specify, if you have a sidewalk through your driveway, you must you must diagram that as well.
Well, and a sidewalk should be through their driveway when they finish paving it. I'm more concerned with the people who don't have a sidewalk through their driveway yet that need to going forward. So if you have, a driveway that already has a sidewalk through it and you're just replacing the driveway, then they should leave the sidewalk. That's part of the village's property, right?
Yes.
Basically speaking, our right of way, right, and we're responsible from that going forward. And which is probably gonna need to be part of whatever our permits are for driveway replacements in Ogle Crossings. So we should probably,
Are you asking to increase the fee of driveway replacements in Ogle Crossing?
No, I'm asking that if somebody's coming in for a driveway permit in Ogle Crossings, that we find out first if they have a sidewalk going through, and if they do, then make sure that they still have one afterwards, and if they don't, that we have an opportunity to put one in before they pave.
Yeah, we'll make a note about this too in the future, hopefully stop them before it occurs as well. But again, as I also mentioned, it'd be very helpful if our residents would include details like existing sidewalks or not existing sidewalks, or a stub of a sidewalk that you're removing.
Yeah.
That should have been also included in the plans. And I had asked our building inspector to be cognizant of the fact that we are a rural community that's small, and so some of the plans that are submitted to them don't show them a whole lot of detail. In this instance, that was one of the details that was missing. And so, life lesson learned all around, we'll add the information to our driveway permit. We'll also keep an eye on permits coming in for that. We're also gonna ask the homeowners to diagram that information as well, and then we'll also ask the building inspector.
Yeah,
to
no,
confirm that
if
information.
you have somebody from Ogle Crossings, you should ask them if there's a sidewalk there. That should be part of our, whatever our procedure is.
Yes, and so do I know that that's going to, cause some tension? It absolutely will, because we're asking some more of the homeowners and submitting their drawings.
Well, I don't think that asking them to sketch out a sidewalk that goes through their driveway is a huge thing, and it needs to be there after they put in their new driveway, take out the old one and put in the new one, and if they don't have one, we need to put one in. And we'll need time to do that, so that's stuff they should know when they come in to get the permit.
Well, so I have a cheat sheet that goes with your permit application when they pick it up, or when they print it off online, so I'm just gonna add it to that, so that way the information is
that would
in
be
writing, upfront,
fantastic.
available to them.
Yeah, 'cause it's apparently it's a time-consuming thing to get somebody in to do the sidewalk, and if we have to be ADA compliant, it might even be more of a struggle. So those were my two things, and then now Fergie has one of his own.
Oh, did Matt say something? Matt's talking.
That-
so.
Oh, hold on.
Hey, real quick, on, Ogle Crossing, just to make sure I'm understanding, we probably do need to take a look at the development agreement there, but, I thought in Ogle Crossing, if somebody's building a house out there, when that house goes in, they build the driveway, the homeowner's actually responsible for the sidewalk that goes in front of their property. Now, once it's in, if there's damage or repairs that need to be done to it, then obviously, it's village right away, they would go in and make those repairs. But if it is a new driveway going in out in Ogle Crossing, I believe that should be on the property owner when they're, building the home, putting the driveway in, I believe.
It's a replacement of an existing driveway in a piece of town in which the village has already accepted the improvements.
Okay.
I do like your thought process, though.
So, apparently this one, you or me? All right. The quote we put in for the truck that we were gonna get from, Brad Manning Ford, is that what it was? Turns out when Fergie went to them, they had made a mistake of, $750-ish?
It was right around there, 730.
Yeah. So, it's actually gonna cost us $730 more, and we'll have a new resolution for it, even though it's still cheaper by about the same amount, about $750 than the, Rochelle, offer. So we'll put in a new resolution for that next week.
You'll actually see two, one rescinding last week's motion, or one, last week's resolution, and then one approving the new one, so it's a dual motion, or a dual resolution.
But it's essentially for the purchase of the one.
Fix
Yes,
the
it's
first
for the
motion.
purchase, so we'll be rescinding last week's agreement to purchase, and we'll be then agreeing to a new purchase.
Make sure to fix the first motion.
You can't just amend it?
So there's a resolution in your board packet rescinding it, no, 'cause it's a resolution, unfortunately.
It says F-105. That's the Thunder Chief.
Good
Yeah.
call. I'll make it say F-150.
Thank you.
Oh, it does, that's funny.
Yeah.
We got anything else, Fergie?
Nope, I believe we're good.
Then I'm done.
Just for the record, the F-105 was lovingly called the Thud. None of you know what it is. Anything further, Chris?
Nope, that's it.
All right. We'll move on. Utilities and Dina.
If what I'm looking at, I believe, is to be, oh, wait, I'm not muted, unmuted, whatever. We had talked, I think, a few weeks ago,
You're
You're still muted.
am I there? Is it,
You
Fine
gotta
now?
click it in the bottom corner.
I'm trying to look on both things.
There you
There you
go.
Okay, well, I'm trying to read the agenda and do this at the same time, so it's not working. So, when you're looking at the, there's a resolution in there for an agreement with McMahon and Associates, and if I'm not mistaken, and, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, a few weeks ago, we talked about the PLCs at, the wastewater treatment plant and the problems we're having with them, and involving also the SCADA system, and everything is made by, is it Siemens? Yeah, and so, the resolution there that is in the packet is literally for them to prepare a, I guess, the way to get a quote involving updating all of that to being what we need it to be, because currently it's not what it needs to be. And I think that's basically what it's about.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you, sir. Hearing no questions, I'd like that in the packet and the,
Consent agenda?
please.
Will do.
Add it to the agenda. Anything further, Dina?
I don't have anything because Matt already mentioned the, water tower project, so as far as I'm, oh, Brett does have one thing.
Just real quick, I'm sure everyone has noticed that, we've started flushing hydrants. You may see some issues with discolored water again, because as we're flushing hydrants, everyone is well aware that there was some extra iron in the system from the tower project and backwashing, we've discussed this, so, we are flushing, we're attempting to pull that out, so we're gonna have a little bit longer flush times, so you may see some discoloration, we're working on it, so this may take a time or two of flushing, we may even have this again next spring when we flush, so, just kind of bear with us, and we're doing our best on it, so, that's it, thank you.
I'm already unmuted.
Oh, can I add one thing?
Certainly.
And I know he hates this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, so too bad. I just wanted to thank Brett for all the extra and additional time that he spent on the water tower project, 'cause let's be serious, we know for the most part that literally, other than my making motions and discussing the information and whatnot, he does all the heavy lifting and he does all the work. I just simply sit here, so, just wanted to say thank you to him for all of his time and what that took as well.
Thank you very much.
Anyone have anything on unfinished business?
Nope.
Public? Before we go into closed session? Ooh, don't do that.
If the public speaks, I have to have the speaker on,
Okay.
so I was waiting to see if someone in the public was speaking.
Just wanted to congratulate the Village of Davis Junction today. Very, very excited about the numbers we saw in voting today. Last I knew, it was 908 voters at 5:15. When I came through, there were still voters both on my way home and on the way here. So, great shout out to the.
Is that in person or period?
In person. So regardless of who you voted for, bravo for getting out there and doing your civic duty. All right, we'll move on to closed session.
So I'll make a motion to move to closed session 2C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before the court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for finding shall be recorded and entered into minutes of the closed meeting.
Second.
Dina makes a motion to go into closed session under section 2C11. Jen seconds. Does roll call?
Yep, Jen,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Dina,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
William.
Yes.
Motion passes at 8:07.
Motion to reconvene open session.
Second.
John makes a motion to reconvene open session. Jen seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Motion
We
to
are
adjourn.
back in open session at 8:49. Is there anything further from the board members before we close?
No, sir.
There's no action on closed session.
Make
Chris-
a motion for
Chris makes a motion to adjourn. Jen seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Adjourned at 8:49.